And now I'm joined by my friend and columnist, Mike Triplett of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. Mike, the big roster bubble question all throughout camp during the preseason was the running back question. What was going to happen there? And it turns out the Saints didn't have to choose between Ivory and Cadet. So how can they justify keeping both guys?
Well, early in the year, you do have a little more luxury because the injuries haven't piled up. You're not using up all those inactive roster spots and injured guys. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is I did also think they were going to be heavy at receiver and heavy at running back. They ended up putting Nick Toon, the rookie receiver, who is sort of a developmental project, on injured reserve. That lets you have another offensive sort of developmental project in Traveris Cadet on the active roster. So the bigger question now is, will they have the luxury of having 5 running backs all year long? But it is a position that gets more injury prone than others, and they say, it's a cliche, you can never have too many running backs, but they've proved it. I mean, last year they kept 4, and by the end of the 49ers playoff game, they were running out of them.
Now, you were talking about the receiver position, so let's stick with that a little bit. A lot of competition between Joe Morgan out there, the flash burner. That guy can run like crazy. Nick Toon, Arrington also. Ultimately, Toon is the odd man out.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, he was placed on IR. How big a role do you think that Morgan and Arrington are going to have with the team?
Well, it's interesting. We'll find out soon if Adrian Arrington is healthy enough to go in week 1, since he missed almost all of training camp after having minor knee surgery. He really looked like he was ready to take advantage of the opportunity he's been waiting years for, to finally be in that core group of 4 receivers. And then he misses the entire summer. So he might take a little while to get back in, and Joe Morgan can start out. I think they also like Joe Morgan because if they can get him on the field, defenses will at least have to respect the deep threat. That's something that Robert Meacham brought to the offense, that he's gone to San Diego now, and Joe Morgan brings that. But yeah, once the injuries pile up at other positions, those are 2 areas, the 5 running backs and then 6 receivers if you count Courtney Roby, or 5 receivers. Those are positions where they're constantly going to have to keep proving that they're worthy of a roster spot, because both of them are kind of a luxury right now.
All right, now let's talk about the defense a little bit here. Tyron Walker, the other undrafted free agent to make the roster, along with a guy I love, rookie Akeem Hicks, who just brings a great skill set to the defensive line. What can these 2 guys bring to the table that we didn't have last year with the Saints?
Well, first of all, you're starting with Broderick Bunkley in the starting lineup they didn't have last year, and you'll hope he'll be more productive than the big free agent signings they made last year. But yeah, Akeem Hicks, I thought he was going to be a raw developmental project. I didn't think he'd see the field a lot as a rookie, but he looks like a playmaker that will not only see the field, they might rotate him in early and often, because he really has been batting passes down. He's been shoving guards back to stop runners in the backfield, definitely getting to the quarterback. He definitely looks like a change of pace guy who could be a pass rusher as well as a run stuffer, a big body. Tyron Walker, I don't know if maybe he'll be a little more inactive in the early games, maybe not, but he seems to me like a guy that again, they liked what they saw. They want to develop him and keep him if they have the chance and they have the roster spots. But I don't know necessarily that we'll see him on the field quite as much in the early games as we will Akeem Hicks.
Obviously, defensively, the Saints need to improve over last year. Everybody knows that. The linebacking core has been all banged up. Barrett Ruud comes over in a trade. How valuable has his acquisition been?
Well, he's one of those guys that hopefully they don't need, but they might, because I think everybody seems to feel fine that Curtis Loft will be ready to start at middle linebacker for the Saints in week 1 against the Washington Redskins. But they didn't have enough guys to field any middle linebackers for some of these last preseason games, or at least not to go 2 and 3 deep. So if Curtis Lofton's not completely healthy, or if they need a backup there, then I think Barrett Ruud brings a guy that you trust behind him. And then we also don't know if David Hawthorne will be ready to start for sure in week 1 at the weak side linebacker spot. They do have a couple other backups in Will Herring and Jonathan Casillas that can fill in there. But it's all about depth at every position, because injuries, I mean, we've already started talking about injuries now. We haven't even gotten to week 1 yet. Right. All season long, I'm sure we'll talk about 1 or 2 position groups that are like that. So to be able to get a veteran that you trust in there as a backup is always a good thing.
Are you happy with 53?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue, because when it comes down to it, you look at their top 30 or 40 guys, they've been here and they're top notch. So we do get a little more caught up in the stories of the backups and the undrafted guys and the guys with potential and things like that. But I don't see a lot of holes. I think obviously you wish they had a little bit better depth at defensive end if Will Smith is indeed going to start his 4-game suspension, but then they kept the extra defensive tackle there. And as we know, Steve Spagnuolo mixes and matches those guys at end and tackle quite a bit. He'll get creative there, I think, to make up for the lack of depth at end with the extra tackles.
All right, Mike, as anybody who reads you knows, you know everything. So we're going to take a break. Stand by. When we get back, we're going to get into the predictions. Mike's predictions, and he never goes wrong, as well as a look ahead to Week 1, the matchup with the Washington Redskins. And later on, LSU gets their season underway, but the offense had some mixed reviews. What to take from the Tigers' debut when the final play continues.